In this video, we're going to be answering the top questions asked about home inspections. How much does a home inspection cost? Typically, we'd say planning on around $500. It's all based on the size of the home. So a small condo can be less. A normal home, give or take around $500. And then as the home gets larger, then the inspector adds on charges for those costs, mainly because they have to spend more time there. You can also get costs for location if you're in an extremely rural area. It takes the inspector an hour and a half one way to get there, and they will charge trip fees because it takes up other time that they could be inspecting other houses. But if you're in a normal neighborhood, plan on around $500. It can get higher from that for those various reasons. How long does a home inspection take? We typically recommend booking about 2 hours out of your schedule for a home inspection. And unless you're buying remotely where you're in another state, we highly recommend you take off work and attend the home inspection. This is your time to explore the home. Open the cabinets, learn about the home, and making sure it's a right fit for you. This is the most time you're going to spend in the home prior to actually getting the keys. So we recommend about 2 hours. Now, it can be less if you're buying something small, like a condo. That can typically take anywhere from 35, 40 minutes to an hour, depending on the condo. But really, you should plan on about 2 hours. And of course, the home, if it's really large, then it can take more than 2 hours. If you're inspecting a humongous mansion, I've seen them actually take 2 and 3 days to complete, depending on the property. If you are doing a home inspection on a rental property, like a residential multi-unit, then that can take multiple days. But if you're just talking about your average home in a neighborhood, plan on about 2 hours. Next, what is a home inspection? So it's a person that you hire who's going to go through the home, top to bottom, and do a visual inspection. So what that means is they're not going to really mess with anything. They're not going to turn things on. They're not going to turn things off. They're going to look at the home in the current condition and visualize through trained eyes. They have classes they have to complete. Some used to be builders themselves, and they will give a visual interpretation of the home all the way from the roof, the attic, the main home, the plumbing, the electrical, the heating, the cooling from a visual standpoint, and then the crawl space as well. They won't be checking your sprinklers. They only look at the structure itself. So if you have like an outbuilding like a garage, make sure you let your inspector know that you want those things inspected. Otherwise, they are likely to only inspect the home itself. What is looked for in a home inspection? A home inspection is going to be looking for maintenance items, things that they consider deferred maintenance, things that need to be caught up on from a maintenance standpoint. They're going to be also looking for, of course, things that are broken, defects, things like that. There's going to be 2 ways that they talk about on the inspection. They're going to say immediate attention and then recommended items. Immediate attentions they believe are important and should be resolved right away, whether right when you get the keys or negotiating with the seller to do it prior to close. But those are things they deem extremely important. Then they're going to have some recommended items, things that are just more like maintenance things, very simple, just maybe things that time got on and it's time to do it again. Those type of things. Think maintenance, light little things. So they'll have 2 grades of recommendations in their inspection report. And then of course they'll say when things are okay as well. Who pays for a home inspection? So it really depends on the market that you're in and what stage the home inspection is ordered. So if a seller is doing it before hitting the marketplace because they want to know the condition of their home, then there is no buyer in the picture. The home's on the market. Yes, that is absolutely going to be a seller inspection expense. We call that a pre-inspection. The one thing I will say about with sellers, and I give this advice to all my selling clients, is if you plan on doing a pre-inspection, you should be planning on fixing things. You don't want to do a home inspection just to tell the next buyer, hey, here's everything that's wrong. You're doing it for the purpose of resolving things. So if you're not intending on fixing your property prior to going on the market, I would have you use caution getting a home inspection. Otherwise, you should really just wait for the buyer to get it. That way they can hire a person that they like. But like in other markets in the Bay Area, it's really normal for a seller to get an inspection prior to hitting the market. The caveat of that is that the seller is on the mindset to fix everything that came up on that inspection report. We do find in Northern Nevada, there's a little more pushback of sellers fixing everything that comes up on a home inspection. So use caution if you're doing pre-inspections. Be expected that you would need to fix everything that's on there if you intend to have that done. Now, most of the market in Northern Nevada does not do inspections prior to hitting the marketplace. The buyer does the inspections hired by their inspector. So it's going to be a buyer's expense. Almost always home inspections. It is extremely rare for a buyer to have a seller pay for a home inspection. As a normal, a buyer will be paying for that, and then they will pick the inspector since they are paying for it. When should you walk away from a transaction because of the home inspection? It should be because things that you're just not willing to do. And there's also things that the seller's not willing to do. That's really the only time that you should walk away from a home inspection. Now, remember, there's always going to be something wrong with a home that you purchase. Always. No home is perfect. There's just too many things in the home. So sometimes you should be looking at your home inspection as a to-do list, the things that you want to do to the home when you own it. But when should you walk away? When those things become too great. Things that are just too expensive that you weren't planning on. Or I'll give you an example like a roof. Let's say you gave the buyer an offer and you gave him that offer based on the roof being okay because you weren't aware of any issues. Home inspection gets done, more advice is given, and the roof needs replaced, right? Those are tens of thousands of dollars. You weren't planning for that. Your offer was not based around having to do that. So of course you want to be solution based. Try to reach out to the seller, try to find a solution. Sellers sometimes didn't know it either and realize, hey, if I'm going to get my price, I have to replace this roof, and solutions can be found. But let's say that they refuse and no, I want this price without the roof. It's not in your financial means. Then yeah, that's a time to walk away and this is not the right home for you and you should move on. So typically we find the big things, foundation, if the house is sliding off a hill, that can be $120,000 repair. If water is coming up out of the ground and it's not a solution and it's creating water damage on the property, sometimes those things become so great that a buyer is just better off finding another home that fits their needs. But should you cancel over little stuff? The things I say with caution on that is the next home is going to have probably very similar little things. So always there's going to be something that needs to be done. And you need to look at inspection sometimes as a to-do list when you get the keys. But if it's just far beyond your financial means and goes far beyond your comfort level of owning the home, that's why you get a home inspection, is to make sure you're comfortable. And if you're not, then you walk away. Sellers, how should you prepare for a home inspection? I always encourage my selling clients to treat it like a showing. So have the home in neat, tidy, showing condition, all of the blinds open, all of the lights on. Because remember, your buyer is getting a second look at this house for the first time since they've written the offer. Maybe they've only seen the house one time at a showing. So this is their excitement to maintain being emotionally connected to your property. You want to excite them about that. So keep the home in nice, clean shape, lights on, windows, the blinds open so there's nice, bright light in your home. The other thing that I would recommend is, if you're a seller, is making sure that your attic is easily accessible, making sure that your crawl space is easily accessible. The inspector is going to go in there. Make sure if you have a lock on your electrical panel, those locks need to be removed. If you have locks around the property on gates or garages or things like that, this is the time that the buyer expects to have full access to your home. Some people have like one bedroom that they have locked during the showings. This is the time to unlock that bedroom. So make sure that you are prepared to have the buyer and their inspector go top to bottom in every space on your property, which means it needs to be accessible. No locked doors, no padlock on things. And then when the inspection's over, feel free to go put those things back on. How long does an appraisal occur after the home inspection? So everything is ordered at once. An appraisal and a home inspection are ordered in parallel. They're ordered at the same time. And if you watch my previous video about appraisals, remember they're kind of separate. And in a home inspection, that means there's a purchase happening. The bank orders that. So they will order it immediately, same time, and they go in parallel. It really depends on the market. We've had markets where when interest rates were really low, appraisers were so busy doing refinances that we could barely get an appraisal in the property because they were just too busy. So it can happen almost near the end sometimes. In slower markets, then it happens really quick. We've actually had it where an appraisal happens before an inspection. So it really just depends on how active the overall marketplace is and how available the appraisers are. If they're readily available because it's a slower marketplace, they might go in faster than the home inspector. If it's a really busy market and the market is going nuts with refinances, because remember, appraisers do also refinances and home purchases, then it could be a while. It could be a couple weeks after. So it really depends on the market to that answer, more so than a standard. Right now, at the time of this video, appraisals are happening extremely fast. This is a market where we're actually seeing appraisers come in sometimes faster than the home inspector. Is the seller present during inspections? Northern Nevada market, on scale, that answer is generally no. It's extremely unusual for a seller to be present during the home inspection. My selling clients, I encourage them not to, just because we do want the buyer to feel comfortable through this process. And when there's another party involved, especially the party that you're negotiating with, it can feel uncomfortable. So we do recommend not having the seller present during home inspections so that the buyer can have free reign and explore the home without feeling uncomfortable. You want them to feel comfortable in your home because this is the moment where deals can fall apart, where buyers don't approve your home's condition. So you want good energy, and good energy sometimes means they need to picture their lives, which means they don't need you as a part of it. Now, in unique situations, we've seen this happen. Sometimes we've seen home inspections where buyers aren't there and only the buyer's agent and inspector is there. Sometimes the seller will stay and hang out. I just recommend using caution on that because remember, they represent the other party. So you don't want to be volunteering things. You just want to listen, not say a word. But again, we highly encourage you not to be present. Sometimes there's like a very unique situation, like about the house. Sometimes the seller needs to be there for access or something like that. Then we see the seller's present. And then of course, like health reasons. If there's a person who's just physically unable to leave the home due to health reasons, then it's very, very typical. We see those circumstances where the sellers stay. But overall, as a blanket piece of advice, I do recommend our selling clients not be in the home during an inspection. Let the buyer's agent, the inspector have free reign of the home because it'll just maintain them being more excited about picturing their lives in the home instead of feeling like they're in your home. What to expect from a home inspection. So after the inspector is completely done, it'll take about 2 hours, typically, as I mentioned earlier, to complete that home inspection. They will talk to you about their main bullet points. So they may walk you through the home. They might show you some of the important things that they recommend they bring to your attention now. They always will. They will always find something. So expect that they're going to. Don't expect it's just going to say, hey, your house is great. You didn't hire them to do that. You hired them to tell you all the problems with the home. So they may walk through the home and show you some of the things that they have concerns over. We call that summary. So once a summary is done, you're still going to get a report. You should be hiring an inspector who does a report with nice color photos so that you can properly understand what they found. And they'll have a nice either digital PDF that you can print into hard copy to really understand your home's condition. Plus, if you're asking of things of the seller, you need to be able to properly communicate to the seller what you want repaired, and a good report does that. Summary, just remember though, they won't tell you everything. They will tell you memorable things to them, and you'll still see some additional things on the inspection report. But what we've learned is most inspection reports tend to be kind of like a checkbox, and then the report kicks it out. So sometimes they can look scarier than the house really is just based on the software used. So that's why we find it so important to attend home inspections and talk with the inspector, because if the inspector is not concerned, then there's no reason for you to be concerned over those things. So we've just learned that you shouldn't just rely straight on an inspection report and just not attend. You should have a conversation with your inspector, and then have the report as a reference guide. Do remember you will be giving the inspection report to the seller. So it's not something you're going to be keeping in hiding. It will be released to the seller. In Northern Nevada, it is part of the contracts that it immediately gets released to the seller. Should you get a radon test in addition to a home inspection? Northern Nevada, if you look on the radon maps, it's very prevalent for radon. We have kind of like a thin crust with the world and with lava and things like that. That's why we have geothermal plants here, is because we have easy access to underneath the earth, which also means that gases can escape, and that's radon. Radon is a national thing. It comes out of the ground. It's naturally occurring, but actually Northern Nevada is known for having unsafe levels. It's a very solvable thing. One house can have it, one house cannot. Places like Gardnerville, it's actually very prevalent to have in Northern Nevada, but other areas in the nation as well. You should consider getting one, unless you have maps in your region that shows you have relatively low levels. But in our marketplace in Northern Nevada, that's not the case. We have overall very high levels of radon. I had my home tested for radon. Folks that are comfortable investing the money, we always advise getting that. The only time we never see radon occurring is like high-rise condos. You're too high up off the ground to consider that. But if you have a basement in Northern Nevada, if you're near the river, you should consider getting a radon test just to give you that peace of mind. And that way, if you do have an issue, you can solve it. So yes, on summary answer, we do recommend getting a radon inspection. What happens after the home inspection? So we touched on this a little bit. About the next day, you will receive a PDF of all of the things found if you hired the right inspector, with photos of everything that's wrong with the home. What happens next is, depending on how you negotiated your inspection contingency, you have the right to ask for the seller to repair things. And you should be talking with your agent. Typically how we do it is, once the inspection comes in, we'll leave you alone, let you sleep on the report for a day, and then by next day start having a discussion with you. Depending on when your deadline is and how you negotiated your contract, we have all the way up until that time to ask for things to be remedied. Now, it's a negotiating item. The seller has no obligation to agree to this. It's a renegotiation. So when you're thinking about that and you're building your repair list, make sure you are in within reason. Because if you start asking for really crazy things, the likelihood of the seller agreeing starts to decline, and you may not get the home when you actually have a good opportunity in front of you. So just be cautious when you're thinking about it. You want to renegotiate, but just like when you offer the property, you don't offer some crazy low number that they're going to reject. So be in the same mindset when you're reviewing repairs. You don't want to have crazy requests that they're not going to accept. You want to have a solution-based mindset. Now, of course, if repairs are too great, that was the earlier question about when to walk away. If they are great things and the seller's not agreeable to them, then maybe it's not the right house for you. But if it's a very typical condition home, try to find a solution base so that you successfully get the home while having the seller repair some items. What are some of the big red flags in a home inspection? So some things I've learned that have high rates of deals falling apart. Roof. So if a roof is in really bad shape, that can become a really major expense to a buyer. And if the seller can't remedy it, they typically will walk away. How they remedy it is either giving the buyer money so that they can fix the roof afterwards, holding back money so that the roof can be repaired, or the seller will agree to repair the roof prior to close. Just thinking from kind of top to bottom on the home. Attic. So if a roof is leaking, sometimes there can be water damage inside of an attic. Pest inspectors, pest companies are the ones licensed to remedy water damaged properties. I'm not talking about like crazy floods. I'm just talking about normal type things. And most all pest inspectors are now mold and fungus remedy licensed folks. So we typically call pest inspectors to resolve water damage created by roofs. Now, if it's structurally damaged, like where the wood needs replaced, and of course you're going to have a contractor involved. But most of the times we see just like surface fungus, and then pest inspectors can remedy those. What other big things? Water heaters, furnaces, air conditioners. If those have failed or those are ready to be replaced like right now, and those are typically big red items because they're just very, very expensive to remedy. The other things I see are foundation issues. So maybe the buyer didn't realize that the foundation has failed on the property and the house is actually sliding and settling and kind of sort of falling apart. Those can be really expensive. The cheapest I've seen is $40,000. I've seen them as high as $120,000 to repair the foundation of a house. So sometimes those can be very, very great expenses that neither the seller or buyer can remedy, and kind of the seller's stuck because they're not in a position to take the discount needed to remedy the home. That's a big one as well. Last but not least, water damage in the floors. So something has leaked for so long that it actually creates structural damage to the subfloor of the property, like a leaking toilet, a leaking sink, something like that. We have find those can be really big deals and can be really expensive to remedy. So if the seller's not agreeable to resolving it, that's when we can see red flags. But in terms of overall red flags, there really isn't one if the seller's willing to fix it. But if they're not, that's when it becomes a big issue because you have to decide if you want to take it on. And typically on the really expensive items, unless the seller's willing to come down on their price, we typically find those not solvable solutions. What should you be asking during a home inspection? So if you have a good inspector, you shouldn't have to ask anything throughout the home inspection. Now, what you definitely should be asking is when they provide you the summary, the things that they find, ask them anything that you don't understand. We do find sometimes that buyers, since we do this every day, they get a little confused about the things being described to them, but they pretend like they understand what the person is saying when they really don't. So that'd be my biggest advice is ask questions on what you don't understand. If you don't understand what a toilet seal is, ask them, what is a toilet seal? If they are talking about floor joists and you've never heard the word joist before, ask them what that is. Have them walk you to that and show them what you're talking about. Because inspectors sometimes will tend to use like building contractor terms that you may never heard of before. Ask them what that means. Have them point it to you. You've hired them to give you this advice. They're expecting you to ask questions. They're expecting to be able to show you around and point what they're referring to. So I would say definitely ask as many questions as you want on your summary at the very end. And if you don't understand it, say it. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that word means. What does that mean? Ask those questions. It'll give you a far more valuable home inspection. What should you be doing during a home inspection? First, I definitely recommend staying out of the inspector's way. Just because you've hired the inspector, it's not your role to follow them around as they complete their inspection. I do encourage my buying clients to just stay out of their way, let them do their thing. Now you get to explore as well. This is your opportunity, but just do it in a different direction. Go explore the property when the inspector's not nearby and go through the home. Find everything. But remember, you're not licensed and insured, so you're not allowed to grab a ladder and go on the roof. You're not a licensed insured person and it's not your home. So we do have to make sure that we use caution on how all of that works. Some buyers want to start climbing around the roof. You don't have an insurance bond that if you damage the roof that it's automatically covered. So that's the reason you have to bring on professionals to do these type of things, because you could be held liable for those things if the seller finds damage to the property during your inspection. So explore. Go look at everything. Open every door that you want. Open every cabinet door that you want. Go explore. But we do highly recommend staying out of the inspector's way. They will follow their process. You go on a different direction and explore the entire home. And then you'll see the inspector change positions. Then you can go over where they were and go explore. But we highly recommend not interrupting the inspector, letting them do their thorough inspection, then start having a conversation with them when their inspection is complete. Are a home inspection and appraisal the same thing? They are not. Feel free to take a look at my appraisal video in this series as well, but they are two separate things. So you are hiring the inspector to be aware of the home's condition of the property at a very fine-tuned level. An appraisal is extremely different. An appraisal has higher level guidelines of what is required to loan you money on the property. And remember, the appraiser doesn't work for you. The appraiser works for the bank. Now, a home inspector actually does work for you. So you actually won't be giving the home inspection to the bank. It can actually really mess up your loan when you do. So we never give home inspections to the bank ever. It's only for your knowledge and for your peace of mind and making sure that you are okay with the condition of the property. They are two extremely separate things. Last but not least, are home inspections required? Absolutely not. It's a negotiable item. It is up to you, but you put yourself at great liability if you don't have a professional eye on the home. I've even had people, I can't tell you, who are like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do my own home inspection. I remind them, well, you're not a licensed person, so you can't go on the roof. But they're like, that's fine. I'll go do it. And they miss things because they don't have a trained eye of how to properly inspect a home. They know homes, but they miss things. And then they find about later, and then there's nobody that they can hold accountable to except themselves. So use caution when performing your own inspections. I highly recommend getting a home inspection. Our organization, as realtors, makes you sign a form that says how crucial it is to hire somebody to get a second eye on the home's condition. So no, they are absolutely not required. It is a condition of your contract, but you put yourself at massive risk if you do not perform a structural inspection on a purchase. We hope these question and answers helped inform you on the home inspection process. Be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. If you have further questions, please comment below.